Hey everybody, fellow fanatics, and welcome to the Shark is Broken fan page. I am your host, Paulie Christine, and again, we have another great guest, Gaige Tedder. I met him at the Martha's Vineyard for the 50th anniversary. He has a great, amazing personal Jaws collection, and I had to get him on. So, Gage, thank you so much for being with us today.
I'm glad to be here.
Thank you, brother. So, I start with everybody.
Okay.
How did Jaws enter your universe?
So I don't remember the exact year. I was either going into the first grade or it was somewhere in the middle of my first grade year of school. And it had to have been on a Friday or Saturday night because I would have been spending the weekend with my grandparents. And I vividly remember going through the living room and my grandfather was watching a movie. And most of the time, he always watched like old Western TV shows like Gunsmoke or a John Wayne movie, Clint Eastwood. But this particular night was different because I noticed that there was a woman swimming across the screen from below. It was Chrissy Watkins. And so I went, okay, like, what is he watching? Naturally curious. This isn't a Western. So then it became very apparent that it was a shark movie. And at the time, I was fascinated with sharks. I still am. And I was really big in the Shark Week back when Shark Week still used to be really more science based.
Hmm.
And I that's what really got me. And I sat there and watched that with him. And ever since then, I've just always had this real big love and appreciation for Jaws. And I wouldn't have that if it hadn't have been for walking through one day at my grandfather's house and he was watching Jaws and he let me watch it at a what some would probably consider a too young of an age, like a lot of us did. But it's just kind of how it panned out, and ever since then, I've had a love for it.
Was it on TV or was it on HBO? Like, was it the full version or the edited? Do you remember that itself? Do you
I
remember what year
believe
was it
it
for you?
was, I believe it was the edited version because I want to say it was ABC.
Okay. And then it still is, they make it a 3 hour movie.
Yeah, because it has all the,
All the commercials.
yeah,
Make it three, and it's 2 hours and 4 minutes. So imagine 56 minutes of friggin' commercials that you got to go
yeah.
through because they just did it again on NBC.
Oh,
They
really?
just they just showed it. They just showed it for the. They showed it that night of the 20th on NBC for the 50th anniversary, and Spielberg did an introduction for it,
Okay,
which is different from. There's an introduction for Peacock,
I saw that one.
right? And then he did a different version for that, and then at Martha's Vineyard he did another different introduction for Martha's Vineyard
Okay,
itself. Yeah, yeah. And how? What year was that? You figure? How old were you then? He said
I would have been. Oh God, the year I'd have to do some math, but
probably 70s. Had to be 79, 80. How old are you anyway?
I'm 35, man.
So you were born what, eight? What year were you born?
Yeah, 80.
Oh, so there you go. So your consciousness, so you're talking 87, 88, 88 then,
Yeah,
right?
probably 80. If I had to guess,
Yeah.
it's probably 87.
Yeah. Okay. There you go. There you go. See, I'm 58. So I knew about it. I was only oh shit, 67. I was 7 years old.
Right,
But it was in my consciousness because everybody was talking about it.
right.
And everybody bought the paperback that summer. Like the whole block had the paperback, and
Yeah.
I had a really good reading level, and I read the paperback because there's no 7 year old going to the friggin' movies unless you had parents that didn't have nobody to
Right.
babysit them. It was one of those deals.
Yeah, I remember when I first read the book, because I saw the movie first. I first read the book when I was in the sixth grade, and I read it 8 times that summer
Mm,
because I really liked it. And I've
yeah,
read it many times since then.
and I always hated the ending. I just hated that the shark just comes and like bumps Brody
And then
and then
dies.
dies. It was
Yeah.
like, and because what he did, he made it Moby Dick.
Yeah.
He ended it like Moby Dick, which was, and the thing too is that I always was fascinated by is that even though Quint was obsessed, they went back home.
Right.
You
Right.
know, they were like, okay, we'll try again tomorrow, and you got this giant shark out there, and like the way that's how Quint was in the movie, like screw that, I'm not going anywhere. I got barrels on, and now anybody could see this
Right.
shark and capture him. So now after that, did you So you have a collection, but as growing up, so did you watch it every year? Did you like buy the poster? Like, what was would you how did you start collecting wise?
So I did watch it every year. Well, if we're being honest, I probably watched it every week, if we're being
Mm,
honest. My collecting started, I think this was in 2016 is when I think I started. And I really
oh,
just,
relatively new,
yeah.
basically. Wow.
And talking like in terms of actual props and things like that.
Yeah.
Now, if we're talking like posters and things like that, then that'd be like 2010. Um, but I'd started small, like because everybody had the game where it was the shark and you had to get stuff out of its mouth. NECA just did a re-release of it. I
Yes.
had that, and then I had a few of the other things that would come along. I had T-shirts. I had little stuff like you'd put in the bath and things like that. And I've still got a lot of it. It's packed up in boxes. I moved not too long ago. And so I guess you could say my collecting really started then. So I had to have been at that time, it would have been right after I saw Jaws because I was a Jaws nut. I was a fanatic at that point. So I've been collecting just things here and there most of my life, but my prop collecting didn't start until 2016.
Mm. And how did you venture that way?
Well, that was all by chance. And how that started was, you know, I was in I was working at the time, and if I remember correctly, I think I was just out of college. If I remember correctly, I think I was just out of college. And one day I just saw it popped up at an auction house, and it was Heritage Auctions is who
Oh
it
yeah.
was. And it was the Orca letters off the back of the Orca 2 had popped up. And I saw that, and the starting bid, if I remember correctly, was $1. If I
No
if
kidding.
I remember correctly, it was $1, and they had came from the Lynn Murphy estate.
Hmm.
And of course, I mean, I looked at it. I sent them emails. I called them. I was like, "Hey, is this legit?" And they was like, "Oh no, this is legit. We have paperwork. We have pictures from Lynn and his wife and everything." I think Lynn had actually passed by then, so it would have been so Susan would have been the one giving it to him. And I remember thinking about it because it had 5 days until it was going to go on auction. And it did say that there was no reserve on it and that the starting bid was going to be $1. And I was sitting there and I was looking at that and I was like, I can at least try. I can try.
Right.
So a few days later, it was on a weekend. I was sitting there at my computer and I was waiting for it, and I kept refreshing the page to make sure I didn't miss it when it first came on. And I was the first bid. I put in $5, and then it started going up rapidly, like clockwork.
What was it, a day of auction or
It was a day of auction.
okay. So not many days, just as it was happening right then and there. And
Correct.
was it a time thing also?
Yes, it was. If I remember correctly, I think the auction itself, because they were auctioning off other things. One of the things I remember that they were auctioning was one of the helmets from Planet of the Apes. I
At the
remember
same
that.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it was going to be right after that because they were doing them in order. And if I
Okay.
remember correctly, it was only, you only had, the auction itself was only 15 minutes long, I think. I wasn't
Wow.
aware of that. And so, I mean, it was rapid fire. There were people that were wanting it. And the bid had got up to $500 at that point. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm not going to get this at all, but I'm going to try something. And I put in $1,500, and it stopped. All the bidding stopped.
So let me ask you this: like eBay, it didn't matter. It wasn't the next thing. Your next bid was 1,500, regardless.
Yes.
Okay, so it didn't like go 550, and then everybody went up. So it wasn't like that wasn't your max bid. That was the bid.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Wow. Yeah, that's dramatic.
And there was one that somebody came back and put uh 16, and I was like, nah, I think I'm gonna let it go. And then the auctioneer, he was like, it's going once, it's going twice, and I put 17, and then he ended it. I got him.
Oh, you sniped it basically.
Yeah.
Wow, that's
Yep.
awesome.
It was it was one of the proudest it was one of the proudest moments that I had because it was really a thing of disbelief. 'Cause I was like, oh my God, I just bought something from Jaws. you
Right.
know?
And oh my God, I got to come up with $1,700.
Yeah. Yeah, because I had
Plus,
twelve
plus,
hundred
plus the commission for the friggin' place.
exactly, which makes it go up. So at this
Right,
point, you're talking almost $2,000. And
right.
I was like, oh God, I've got 1,200. I got to come up with the rest of this. And I was like, okay, I've got this much in my savings. So good thing was the next week I was getting paid every 2 weeks. I knew that with my check coming in the next week that I was gonna have enough to cover it. And I was like, thank God. Once I did the math in my head, I was like, thank God. And of course, you have a certain amount of time to pay
Yeah,
heritage.
right. Because then it's sending it out automatically. That's what it is.
Yeah. So they're pretty good about that. And they're pretty good
Yeah,
at working with you.
yeah.
And man, that was the first prop that if you can consider it, I guess you'd consider it a prop. That was the first thing I ever bought. And then
Well,
after that,
well, definitely screen used.
yeah, I was
Yeah.
able to
So,
match the rust and everything
right.
to one scene on it, and it's that.
Amazing. Uh, I just want to go quick now. Martha's Vineyard Museum is very fortunate that you donated. We'll get to that though. So I want to look. I took photos. Is it there? What section? What did you bring those to the museum?
No, they
Oh, okay.
they were working with a limited amount of space and
Yeah.
everything. Uh, that was I'd actually sent them one other thing. I have Brody's lamp that's on his roll top desk when he's looking at the magazines, and I'd
Oh,
sent
okay.
that to them, and they were originally going to use it, and then Anna from the museum, who was curating
Anna
all this,
Barber. Yeah.
yeah, really great woman.
Yeah.
She called me and she was like, "Hey, I don't think we really don't have a space for the Brody lamp. Is that okay?" And I said, "That's totally fine. Just make sure I get it back when you send me my stuff." And how I got that was through one of the family members that had owned the Brody house from Jaws 1.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And
And
it just stayed there, I guess.
well, the funny thing about that is the woman that owned it had died and died before Jaws production crew came to the vineyard. She had died and she collected all of this stuff, like all this antique stuff. And I remember specifically some of the stuff that they still had were these old ivory domino sets. And I'd found out who the family was because I had ran into on the vineyard a few years ago a guy whose father used to be the caretaker of the property.
Hmm.
So when the production crew came in, they rented the house, like they resanded the floors, they updated some of the paint on the inside, they put new curtains in, they put new furniture in. They did a lot to that house because they completely cleaned it out of all of her stuff and then just made it look like it was livable. So like everything you see in the kitchen, like the lamp, the stained glass lamp in the kitchen, that's original to the house. The on the fireplace that's sitting in there in the dining room, you see these they're pewter is what they are. These pewter candle holders. And then you got like a, big jug type looking thing, and then you have like a stein. Those are original to the house. So there was a lot from the house that they did use to decorate it,
Yeah, yeah.
but they did put in like new tables, new furniture, and stuff like that to make it lived in. Like the Brodies had just moved there.
Right. So I always quiz people
Okay.
when they're on here
Okay.
because now you were very specific. A lot of people wouldn't catch that. When Brody wakes up in the morning and he gets out
Uh,
of bed, what there's a lamp on the dresser drawer.
yeah.
Do you know what that lamp was? It wasn't a regular lamp.
No, it was not a regular lamp. If I remember correctly, oh God. Because you have the yellow cigarette ashtray that's right there. It's The ashtray itself is like
It's
very.
blurred out, but you can tell it's something.
If I actually have a picture of Spielberg sitting next to that lamp with
Oh,
Barbie and Ellen in the bed. Um, I want to say it's a bird. I want to say it's a bird. I think it's not. What is it? Because I
it's a Gordon's gin liquor bottle.
That's right. It's a Gordon's gin liquor bottle. That's it.
And it took me maybe about 50, because like I say, like you, after a while you start looking at other things
Hmm.
around the scenes,
Yeah,
like the kid laughing when everybody's running out with the long
yeah.
hair and the ponytail, and he's like cracking up, stuff like that. You start like, what's going on? And like Verna didn't catch that and edit because it's so out of place, so like
uh,
that. So yeah, so that I always wonder if people see that friggin' liquor bottle lamp. It's crazy. It's crazy. All
that's
right, so now what did you do when you got the Orca letters? Did you want to put it on a transom type of thing, or did you want to put it on the wall? What did you do when you first got it?
so I originally had them displayed on like a shelf on the wall, like they were just kind of leaned against the wall, sitting on the shelf. But my ultimate goal was eventually to get different parts of the Orca 2 and put them in a frame and hang it on the wall. And I've
Okay.
got some pieces now, but I'm still after a big hull section piece because the Orca 2 is made out of fiberglass. I'm still after a big section of the hull piece so I can kind of put it all together, you know. But
Is it
I,
out there? Other than maybe a collector might have it?
yeah, they're out there. Um, I mean, I saw one pop up on eBay not too long ago. It was actually John Campiano who was working with
Wow.
John Beller that had
Yeah.
it pop up on eBay, and I
And
almost
And
bought it.
Beller's legit.
Yeah, Beller's a good guy. I would like
Yeah.
Jim. I talk to him a lot.
I'm gonna have Jim on here too eventually. Yeah.
Good deal. But it was just a section of black, and I wanted at least a sliver of red up there, at least something. I do have a piece of the door frame.
Wow.
I do have a piece of that, and I'm gonna put that in there. And I got a piece of the banding strap that went around the side up there that they used. Um, some of the Orca 2 is still left over there in Menemsha. It's just buried under the sand. Like the barrels that they would use to flood in order to sink it and everything, and the frame that it sat on is still there, but it's buried in the sand. It's kind of the same thing with the shark barge. It's still there, but it's torn down and everything. Lynn had so much out there. He had Hooper's boat at one. He still does. It's still there that Hooper comes in on when he meets Craig Kingsbury, Ben Gardner.
Yes.
Fascinating Rhythm is the name of that boat, and Lynn buried that boat out there on that property. I can't. I think it was Michael Smith is the one that told me that. I think I won't swear to that, but I think he was the one that told me that Lynn buried that out there. But yeah, there's pieces of it floating around. Of course, there's really big pieces in collections that people obviously don't want to part with unless it's high dollar. But one day I'm going to get my piece, and one day it's all going to come together. One of
Yeah.
these.
So now after getting the Orca letters, what was your next now were you hooked and you're like, okay, now this is my deal?
Yeah, I was because I decided, okay, if I'm going to collect something, it's definitely going to be Jaws. And since then, I've collected other stuff outside of Jaws, but that's an entirely separate story. Um, After that, the next thing that I seriously bought was in 2021, October of 2021, was the harpoon gun.
Oh wow.
That was the next thing that I bought.
Screen used?
Yeah, I was able to match it. So the harpoon gun itself come from the Ben David family, Rennie Ben David, and his father had been the harbor master at the time, Arthur Ben David. And in the script, they still had Quint using handheld harpoons, and you see those handheld harpoons on the side of the Orca. And Joe Alves, as the story was told to me, and the story that's in the Memories from Martha's Vineyard book, because the gun is featured in there. The story that is in that book and what was told to me is that Joe Alves and Arthur Ben David got to be really close friends up until Arthur died. And Joe had casually mentioned to Arthur, like, there's just got to be a better way than throwing a harpoon at this shark because we're afraid that it's not going to stick in the skin whenever we hit it with it. And Arthur had said, well, they do make harpoon guns. And at that point, Joel was like, okay, what exactly is a harpoon gun? He goes, well, I got one. I'll show you. So he took him down to his boat and showed him the gun. And Joel was asked him and said, can we borrow this? And he said, of course, just bring it back. So they ordered three more from the Navy Arms Company because Navy Arms was the importer for Greener firearms out of England because Greener's the one that made the harpoon gun.
Mm-hmm.
And they had two Mark II Greener harpoon rifles, and they had an additional Mark I, which is what mine is, plus the other one that they got. And there's no difference in them except on the Mark IIs, there's a recoil pad that's a rubber material, whereas on the Mark I, it's just a plastic butt pad. It's a butt end. And I was able to screen match that when the 4K come out, and you see it when I matched the grain pattern of the wood is how I did it, which
Wow.
was very tough. And because I mean, like you zoom in and then you get a problem on computers and stuff with it getting pixelated because you're working with a smaller screen. And then I got the bright idea of, well, I've got this 80-inch TV. I think if I put this on here, I can at least zoom in a little bit with the 4K, and I might be able to get a little bit more detail out of it. And I was able to do that, and I did it in two different scenes. The one where right after Quint says, "Hook me up another barrel," and Hooper runs up to the bow and grabs the gun and he picks it up. And you can see it's a smooth back and it's not curved like the recoil pad is. And you see a really good end of the stock of the rifle. And I was able to match the wood grain that way. And then the other way I matched it is when Quint shoots it from under his arm at the transom and the barrel flies by and knocks Brody's glasses off. When he does that and the
That's
shark,
the under the chin shot,
yeah,
right?
the chin. And when the shark goes back down, the tail splashes and it gets all of them wet, and he drops it to the deck because he holds it out to the side. You can see the opposite side of the stock when he does that. When he drops it, I was able to match it that way. And plus, when Robert Shaw dropped that gun, it hit the deck plate where the fighting chair was at, so it's got a curved indentation on that side, and I was able to match it that way.
Wow. And how did that come about that you knew that it was it for sale or
No, it was not for sale. I was a man that lives on the island. I'm friends with Mikey Waters. Uh, he had posted a picture on Facebook with the harpoon gun, and he said that it was the screen used one. And I sent him a message, and I was like, "Is this the one that was in Memories from Martha's Vineyard?" And he said, "Yes, it is." And at that point, I already knew Jim. I contacted him and I was like, "Hey, what do you know about this Arthur Ben David fellow and the harpoon gun?" He goes, "That's one of the guns that was used in the movie. It's still on the island. Arthur's dead now, but his son owns it, which is Rene Ben David." And he was like, his son still owns it and he still lives on the island. I was like, okay, cool. So I was talking to Mikey about it. And Mikey was like, yeah, man, we grew up with each other. We're really good friends. And I was like, do you think he would sell it? He goes, well, I don't know. He said, I'll give him your phone number and tell him that you want to talk to him about it. And if he gives you a call, he does. And if he doesn't, he doesn't. And I said, okay. So he actually ends up sending me a text. He was like, hi, this is Renee Ben David. Yeah, I heard that you want to talk with me. And at the time, my grandfather was in the hospital before he died. And so I was sitting in the hospital with him when Renee had texted me. And I was like, hey, I'm actually in the hospital with my grandfather right now. Can I call you this afternoon? And he said, of course. So I gave him a call and we talked, I think for like an hour or two. I think it was close to 2 hours. And I asked him, I said, would you be interested in selling it? He goes, well, I don't know. I really don't know if I want to. And I was like, okay, if you did, how much would you have to get for it? And he goes, well, I don't know. I have to think about it. We ended up getting off the call. And I called him the next day And I was like, hey, I just wonder if maybe you thought about it. And he goes, yeah, I thought about it, but I don't think I want to sell it. I was like, okay. So rock on 2 weeks later, on a whim, I was like, man, I just wonder if maybe he's thought about it some more. And I shot him a text. I was like, hey, Renee, I was wondering if maybe if you thought about it, gave it another consideration. And he goes, I have thought about it. And he goes, this is what I want for it if I do sell it. And I went, oh God,
What was the number?
$50,000.
How much?
50,000.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah. And I went, oh man. And so I talked to Jim again and I was like, Jim, are you positive this is the gun? He said, yeah, I'm positive because he said, I interviewed Arthur Ben David when he was still alive and we talked about it. And of course, Arthur had all these pictures with Joe Alves with the gun and Robert Shaw with the gun and things like that. And I've got them on an external hard drive here somewhere. I have them. And I was like, okay. And he goes, is he going to sell it to you? I said, yeah, he told me what he wants for it. And he said, well, how much did he want for it? And I told him, and he goes, man, that's kind of steep. And I said, yeah, I know. So I text Rennie back and I said, okay, you gave me a price. Let me think about it for a couple days. A couple days rocked on. I gave him a call and I asked him, I said, okay, um, would you, instead of doing the 50, would you do this? Would you take 25 for it? And he goes, let me think about it. He said, let me eat dinner tonight. Let me talk it over with my wife and my mom, and I'll give you a call later tonight. And I said, okay. So about 7:30 rolls around my time, which would be 8:30 his time, rolls around. And he gives me a call and he goes, all right, John. He said, you got yourself a deal.
Now, were you comfortable giving out that number for yourself? Let me ask you that. Like
Yeah,
that
I've never,
that was your max, obviously, too, right?
yeah. And yeah, I'm comfortable with it because whenever somebody's asked me, I've never hit it. I've never really said what Rennie wanted for it originally. I've never put that out there really, except I think maybe one other time.
Yeah.
And but no,
Well, thank you.
well, it's totally fine, brother. It's totally
Yeah.
fine.
Well, listen, it's that's the part of the story. So,
Yeah.
wow. So, and now let me ask you, at this time, are you single?
No, I'm not. I am a
No, no.
happily.
While this is going on, you're laying out, you're making that offer
Oh,
25,000. Then
at that time, I was single at that time. I'd been single for 2 years at that point.
because I
Because
mean that's a crucial number when you're a couple.
yeah,
You know what
yeah,
I'm saying?
yeah. I was single at the time. I dated a girl before that for a long time, and we were going to get married. And she ended up leaving me because she thought the grass was greener on the other side. And I was
Yeah.
like, okay, you want to do that, that's fine.
You go mow that lawn.
Exactly, exactly. And I'm pretty sure she's ended up regretting that because, like, I still know a lot of her friends that I'm still friends with. And of course, she sees a lot that I've done with Ryan and, the prop collecting and stuff like that. I think she kind of regrets it now, but, she can.
Well, listen, it's dealt in the cards, my man. So oh well.
Exactly,
Oh
exactly.
well.
So, hey, she made her bed, she had to sleep in it. But at that point, I was single at that point. I'd been single for 2 years. And I was like, okay, I've got this much money saved up and I was able to justify it. And I was like, this is gonna be the last prop that I buy for a while.
Because in honesty, if you look at it, because when you get authenticated and you know that screen used, like you also can go to Heritage House.
Correct.
So that worst case scenario, if you ever needed to, grab something off the wall,
Right.
you're good. You know you're good. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? That's why I tell my wife. She goes, "You buy all this stuff." I said, "Yeah, but I'm capable of getting rid of it."
Exactly. It
You know?
it's kind of like a safety net in a way.
Absolutely. It's an investment. It really truly is a
It is
thing.
an investment and it does not depreciate
Not
either.
at all. As you can see how the 50th went.
Exactly.
You know?
Props, Rolexes, and high dollar cars are the one thing that don't depreciate. They only appreciate in
Right.
value.
I had a chance. it was crazy. There was a guy who was a chicken guy. You know, he he owned
I
a
know who you're
chicken
talking
like
about.
a not Kentucky Fried, but his own franchise.
I know who you're talking about.
And he bought one of the Jaws models from Universal,
Yeah.
and it was sitting in someone's backyard, grass covered in the whole 9 yards, and he brought it, but his space was too small that he had it upside down.
Yeah, it was from the Jaws
Oh,
ride.
so
Yeah.
you know what I'm talking
I
about.
know, I know who and what you're talking about.
494 chicken. He
Yeah.
very good. So I live in Staten Island. So and I was fascinated because when you first walked in, everything he had and there was chicken, animation cells, the whole 9 yards, and then he went into a Jaws theme.
Yeah.
He had the barrels up there. I'm like,
Yeah.
holy shit! I said, what happened here with this guy? And then on eBay, he auctioned off the machete.
Yeah.
And he said he didn't know for screen use, but he knew it was one of the extras, if
Yeah.
anything. And I was humming and hawing, and I missed the boat, and I think that only went for 3,500.
Yeah.
And he had like some type of thing, and I was so pissed. I was so pissed that I really should have snatched. It's really I could have went a half a mile away and dealt with him. But oh well. But that's funny that you do know that.
Yeah, I know who he is. I had bought some Orca 2 pieces off of him, part of the decking. He had some of the
Oh,
deck.
okay.
So I know who he is.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a small world, right? That way.
Yeah, it is.
Crazy.
Especially y'all's community is very niche. So like it's pretty much like we all know each other.
Yeah,
We all know who each other are. When it gets into the prop collecting game, like you know who each other are. You
right. So now after all that, like now I went to the now let's talk about the museum.
Okay.
The museum comes up, and I also too I started emailing them because I have the publicity stills,
Hmm.
and other things. I have the Jaws game, the Hooper model kit, and
Yeah.
all that stuff sealed. Uh, and I wrote to them and said, "Oh, I have this, I have that." Oh, it's great, it's great. But they never get back to you. It was
Yeah.
like taking forever. And then January came, and I'm like, they go, all right, we have enough stuff now.
Hmm.
I'm like, oh, all right. And then when I went, I saw they didn't have any publicity stills. They didn't, in where the toy stuff was, they didn't have the actual box, which would have looked great in
Yeah.
the case.
I noticed
There's
that.
certain things that weren't there. So I say, hey, it is what it is. But walking through, I see the Mayor Vaughn jacket,
Yes.
and and that really is there really is the centerpiece of that room.
Yeah, because when you walk in, you don't see it because it's the back is blacked out because there's a
Right.
picture on the other side. And then when you walk around, you see it.
And the way they did so here, let me see if I can. Where am I? There it is.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the way it's centered, you walk, it's a 360 view of it, and it's beautiful. Now let's talk about the origins of you obtaining this. Now,
So that, oh God. Okay. So this is something that took me several years to buy off this husband and wife. This took me several
and
years.
how did this get on your radar?
Well, I knew that the jacket itself was bought on the vineyard. I knew that for a fact. I did know that. I just didn't know who made it. So I searched, as one does, Mayor Vaughn jacket. And of course, nobody knows who made it at this point. But there was somebody on the replica prop forum on the Cape Cod that found a matching jacket, but it was a lady's jacket and it was pink.
With the anchors?
Yes.
Wow.
The white anchors, and people think the anchors are just like sewn on. No, they're embroidered.
Mm.
People think that the jacket is like a light gray. It's not. It's seersucker. If you look at it, it's seersucker with mother of pearl buttons on it. So I saw that, and I'm a member of the prop forum and everything, and I had sent the guy a message. I was like, "Hey, you didn't happen to look on the inside of the jacket to see who made it, did you?" He goes, "No, I didn't, but I'll go back and I'll look." So he went back and looked. Jacket was gone. Somebody had bought it. And if I remember correctly, it had a matching suit pants with it as well, if I remember
And where
correctly.
and where was it? Was it just a regular store?
Yeah,
Antique place?
it was a thrift store.
Oh, no kidding. And that was
Yeah,
like from 70, it was like a 75 or 74 would have been the peak
74.
rating. Wow.
So, well, actually, the jackets were made before that, but we'll get to that because I know who made it. So then rock on, and um, I log into my YouTube channel and I was editing a video, and I saw on my For You page a video popped up of a guy wearing the jacket, and I went, now, this is a damn good replica. Just looking at the thumbnail. So I watched the video, and it's not a replica. And there's this whole story of how this guy, his teacher and his English teacher in high school was also his parents' English lit teacher in high school. And he owned the jacket. He'd bring it in every now and then with other stuff he had from different movies. And if you could tell him what movie it came from, you'd get a candy bar. And eventually he retired, and he ended up giving the jacket to that family because they're really big Jaws fans. And so I went to his email that is associated with his YouTube channel, and it showed me his name, and I went, I bet he's on Facebook. And I found him. I found him in like 10 minutes. And I sent him a message. I was like, hey, I just watched your YouTube video, and I was wondering if maybe you'd like to sell that jacket. And he goes, and he responded like, I think a week later. And he goes, well, it doesn't belong to me. It belongs to my mom and dad. And he said, I'll say something to him about it. A month goes by, and I said, hey, did you ever say anything to your parents about this? At this point, this is 2022.
Hmm.
This is 2020. This is summer of 2022. And he goes, yeah, I mentioned it to them. They hadn't said anything about it. When I next time I go over there, I'll talk to them again. So another month goes by, and then he messaged me. He's like, "Hey, I talked to them, but they don't know if they want to sell it." And I said, "Is there any way I can talk to your parents? Is there just any way?" And he goes, "Yeah, I'll give you their home phone number." So he gave it to me, and I called and I left him a message. I was like, "Hey, my name's John Tedder. I've been talking to your son. I'm very interested in the jacket. I was wondering if you want to sell it. I'd love to have a conversation with you. You can give me a call back at this number." 2 days go by. I get a random call from Pennsylvania on my phone, and I almost didn't answer it. I'm like, this might be them. I pick up the phone. I said, hello. And I was like, this is John. I said, yes, it is. And I was like, hey, this is Wendy. This is Wendy. And, I'm just giving you a call about the jacket. I said, oh, yes, I've been wanting to talk to you and your husband. And she goes, okay, what exactly do you want to talk about? I said, well, just I'm very blunt and direct. I said, well, just to get to the point of things, I said, I'd like to buy it. And she goes, well, I don't think we want to sell it. And I was like, okay, well, before you say that, before you make that decision,
Time to plant. Let's plant the seed.
yeah, before you do that, if you think you ever do want to sell it, you just give me a call back. Save my number. And I said, I'm serious. I'm a serious collector. I said, if you decide to sell it, give me a call. Just give me a call. She said, okay, we will. And the conversation was no more than 10, 15 minutes. I mean, that's how
Hmm.
quick this conversation was. So at this point, it's kind of devious. I started planning on how I was going to do this because I was determined as hell to get this jacket.
Right.
And I went, okay, I'm going to give it 2 months. I'm going to give them a call, be like, hey, I was just checking in, wondering how you're doing. And that's what I did. I was like, I called them 2 months later. I was like, hey, I was just wondering how you're doing. You know, I really enjoyed the last conversation we had, and I was wondering if you thought about it. And they said, well, we thought about it, but we're trying to come up with a number. And I said, okay,
That's
okay.
progress.
I was like, that is progress. And I said, well, when you figure out a number, let me know. 6 months goes by. And I'm
Oh,
like, okay,
wow.
they're not gonna sell it. They're not going to. I had sent her a text randomly during that 6 months. And I was like, hey, just checking in. Wonder if you come up with a number, didn't hear anything. And then 7 months hit, And she finally texts me back and she goes, "Hey, I'm so sorry. We've had a lot going on. We've been building a house." And I was like, totally understandable. No, no animosity here about that. I'm happy you shot me a text. I said, when are you available for a call? She said, I can call you tomorrow. And I said, okay, when's a good time? And she told me, she said, how does 1 o'clock sound? And I said, that sounds perfect to me. So 1 o'clock rolls by and she doesn't call me. And I go, okay, something's happened. Something's going on. And then 30 minutes later, she called and said, "Hey, I'm sorry. I was trying to get back in and all this. Traffic was terrible, this, that, and another. I didn't have my earbuds with me or anything." I was like, "No problem." I was like, "Okay, so have you come up with a number?" And she goes, "Well, we think we have." And I said, "Okay, I think I may have an answer for you." And she goes, "Well, since we don't know if it is the screen used jacket, and there's not another one out there like this, and we do have a lot of sentimental value on that." And she expressed that a lot, which I understand.
Hmm. I hear another zero.
Yeah. And she goes, since we have this sentimental attachment and value to this, we think we'd have to have at least bare minimum of $30,000. And I went, I kind of got real quiet on the phone. I'm like, damn, this is a harpoon gun situation all over again.
Yeah, yeah.
I was
But
like,
but honestly, in realistic terms, it's not a bad number.
no, it's not.
Yeah,
It's not.
yeah. When we're really talking about if it is the jacket,
Yeah.
wow.
And I went, man, this is a harpoon gun situation all over again. And I told her, I said, okay. I said, that's not a bad number. I told her, it's not a bad number. I said, let me let me think about it. I'll give you a call tomorrow night. And I said, I'm gonna call you at 6 o'clock. She goes, okay, we'll be done eating dinner by then. I said, okay. So next day I gave her a call and I said, and she picked up right then, like she said she would. I said, hey, I was thinking about the number you threw out. And I said, since at this point in time, I can't verify whether it's the jacket or not. I said it being the jacket would hold more weight. But since I can't verify that right now, because there's no way for me to verify that at that time, I told her, I said, I'll give you $20,000 for it. And she goes, let me think about it. I said, okay. Calls me 2 days later. And she goes, I got a counter for you. And I said, okay, I'm open to a counter. Let me hear it. She goes, we'll take 27. And I was like, damn, they are not budging off that 30.
Mm,
And I went, I'll give you 25.
there you go. I would have moved it to 25 myself.
I'll give you 25. And I heard her cut the mic on the phone and she was like, we got to do 27. And I went,
And now you're
it's,
thinking it's only 2,000 more compared to what
yeah,
you really wanted. And what's in the long run, what the hell's another $2,000? That's how
exactly.
that's how your brain's working, right?
Exactly. And see, this is one of them times where either, you know,
Cold shit or get off the pot.
exactly, like you either do it or you don't. And I said, all right, you got a deal. She goes, and this was June at this point. And she goes, okay, when would you like to pick it up? I said, well, I got some stuff that I've got to do between now and beginning of August. I said, but in the middle of August, I'm going to be free and I can come and get the jacket then. And she goes, okay. She said, when it gets close to August, we'll set up a time and a day for you to come over and everything. And I said, okay, sounds good. So I kept in constant contact with her during this entire thing because I didn't want that jacket to slip by and
Right,
somebody else hit it.
disappear, right,
Exactly.
right. Or
So
have them start talking to other people, and then you'll get someone else coming by. Go, oh, well, I'll give you 30. I'll give you your 30.
exactly.
Yeah,
So, I mean, that's one of the things about the prop game. Whenever, if you don't buy it from an auction house and you're buying it from an individual, people unfortunately do that. You
And I
know,
always
that's what
say
I'm
to my
doing.
wife too, when you see it, that's the time you got to get it.
Exactly. So kept in constant contact with her. And then August rolls around. And if I remember correctly, it was August 20th that I went and got it. 20th or 23rd. I think it was the 20th that I went to Pennsylvania and got it. I drove all the way there because I was like, man, I really don't want to fly with this thing because what if something happens? You know, of course, TSA, they're not gentle with anything.
Right.
Check baggage, you know, it could get lost, and I definitely don't want to carry it on the carry on because, like I said, TSA is not gentle with shit. And I was like, so I'm just gonna drive up there and I'm gonna get it. So I drove all the way there and I took my camera with me because I asked them, I said, is it okay like if I like interview y'all? Like if I do like interview y'all? They said, yeah, sure. Because I did that with Rennie and
Right.
which is on my YouTube channel and
And what's your channel?
Orca Rebuild.
Okay.
And they was like, yeah, sure, we can do that. So I spent, I think, almost 3 hours with them just talking to them and then filming the interview with them about how they acquired the jacket and how long they had the jacket. So I come back home and then I immediately start doing some Sherlock Holmes work, as I like to call it, some
Hmm.
detective work. And there's no label of who made it on the inside. And I went, damn. And so then what I started doing,
Now let me ask you this: the condition was pristine, worn. I mean, like where there's sweat marks inside the sleeves, like what
there's
anything.
there's a few. There's a few
Okay.
marks on the inside. And there's no liner on the inside. So that would have been taken out because during the summer it's hot,
Right.
you know. So I got to looking at vintage jackets from the 70s because each I knew that it wasn't something you just bought off a rack. It would have been tailored. I knew that. And I got the because each tailor has a way that they cut a jacket, and each tailor has their own look for a jacket that they make, and especially back then. So on the inside flap on the left side of the jacket, it's not anchors, it's tennis rackets,
Mm.
which I thought was interesting. So that was my first lead. So I typed in vintage blazers, tennis racket pattern, brought up all kinds of crap. Well,
Now you got to sift through that.
yeah, and that took me a long time. It took me a month of doing it off and on because I'd bookmark my page of where I was at, and then I'd keep going from there, bookmark another one, keep going. Finally, I ran across a jacket, and it was seersucker with embroidered white tennis rackets. I was like, this has got to be it. So I get to looking at the tennis rackets more carefully. I'm looking at my jacket on the inside of that flap. I'm looking at the screen, looking at the racket, looking at the screen. I'm like, okay, this is definitely it. And that specific pattern was made in 68 by a company in New York who provided jackets to Yale and Harvard at the time. It was a company called Chips. And I got to looking at it and I went, okay, I read on there, Chips is now a defunct business. And I went, damn. Little bit more investigative work over the course of 2 weeks. I find out that the son of the man that started it was still alive. He was,
Wow.
he was still alive. Found his email, shot him an email. I said, hey, my name is Jonathan Gaige Tedder. I believe I have one of your father's original suit jackets, one of his blazers. Um, this is my number because I'd like to talk to you about it. Like 2 or 3 days goes by, and I get this call on my phone from New Jersey. And I'm like, I bet this is that guy. And I'm very glad I got to talk to him about this because he went in the hospice like not even right after I talked to him.
Look at that.
So I'm glad I got to.
Wow.
And he had was like, "So you say you have one of my father's jackets?" I said, "Yeah, I believe I do." And he goes, "Well, can you email me some pictures of it while I'm sitting at my computer?" And I said, "Sure." And I did. And he goes, "Yeah, that's one of my father's jackets. Where did you get it?" I told him, I said, "Well, I got it in Pennsylvania." He goes, "We only ever made three of these because the pattern didn't sell." I said, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, who did you sell the jackets to?" He said, "Well, my father made one for himself. We made a 44 regular and a 42 regular." And he said, "The 42 regular was bought by Tim Kennedy." And wait, yeah, Tim Kennedy. He's the one that went off the Chappaquiddick. Yeah. And I said, "Okay." I said, "What about the other one?" He said, "The other one really just stayed on the rack on a mat. Well, it stayed on the mannequin for a show purpose." He said, "We eventually sold it." And he said, he said, "We made a pink one. We only ever made one pink one for a woman." So that lined up with what I knew about that pink one.
Right.
At this point, I knew that I found the person that had made the jacket. I said, "Okay." I said, I have a question." I said, the at this point, I didn't tell him anything about Jaws because, just talking shop about the jacket. I have a real methodical way about the way I do things.
Mm-hmm.
I said, "On the inside of this jacket," I said, "on the inside flap, it had to be retailored at some point because the it's not anchors on the inside of the flap. It's tennis rackets." He goes, "Well, email me a picture of it." So I took a picture of it with my phone and I sent it to him through email. And he goes, "Oh yeah, that jacket come back in '74 and we had to retailer it." And he said, "We had to do a lot of restoration work to it." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "When we got it, it had this awful smell." And he said, "It smelled like it had been sprayed by a skunk." And he said, "We did everything we could to dry clean that jacket several times and just really couldn't get the smell out of the left side of the jacket." And I said, "Well, what'd you do?" And he said, "We still had some material left over and we completely retailored the other side, the left side of that jacket um, on the left side, the back, and the sleeve." He said, "We completely retailored it." And he said, "If you'll look on the inside, there should still be a tag in there that says PT 574." And he said, "What that stands for is previously tailored May of 1974.
Oh.
And I went, do you know who brought the jacket in to have it retailored?" He goes, "Well," he said, "now," he said, "I really don't remember." He said, "I do remember that it was somebody from some sort of stage play or something going on." He said, "I remember that." He said, "I just never got an answer on why the jacket smelled as bad as it did." And he said, "Because we tried to dry clean that thing several times. And after we retailored it, we still had to dry clean it several times just to finally get the smell out of it." And I said, "Okay." I said, "That's really interesting." And he he told me too, he said, "I'll tell you now, those buttons aren't original to that jacket." And because when I got the jacket, it had black buttons on it. And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Our jackets would have had um, mother of pearl buttons and everything on it." He goes, "If you like, I can send you some of the buttons to repair it with." And I said, "I'd like that." He said, "Does it still have the Chips logo on the inside?" It should be a piece of fabric with our name embroidered, the logo embroidered on it, and where we were located. And everything. I said, "No, sir, it doesn't have that anymore." He said, "Well, I still have a label lying around." He said, "I'll send you that too."
Oh
And he
wow.
sent me the buttons, the label, and a letter of authenticity that this is an official Chips jacket made by my father in 1968. So at this point, I knew that there was a story of the jacket Murray Hamilton wore being burned because he got sprayed by a skunk because he come out of a bar one night, tried to pet a cat that wasn't a cat because it was. And at this point, I'm kind of shaking. I'm like, I'm positive this is
Still,
the.
but still in the costume?
Yeah, that's.
Wow,
I
that's
remember
crazy, isn't it?
it is. I can't remember what book that's in. It's either in Edith Blake's book or it was in Carl Gottlieb's book. It's in one of the two.
Mm,
I think it's in Carl Gottlieb's book.
the Draw's log.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And at this point, I'm shaking. I'm like, I'm pretty sure this is the jacket. So again, I put it up on the big screen. The right side of the jacket matches. The lapel right here matches, but the left side doesn't on the front, and the back and the sleeve doesn't match because it matches up with what he had told me they had to retailor it. And the PT 574 that matches up when Murray Hamilton would have been shooting his scenes for Jaws because they started May 22nd of 1974.
So basically, Murray had it on before production started. So it might have been rehearsal.
He had it on when they were filming because the jacket disappears after the billboard scene where him and
Right,
Hickory were discussing the
right,
shark.
right. Yeah, because you don't have it in the hospital scene.
Correct. And
Yeah,
Jaws was shot out of order as well.
right,
Most movies are.
right,
So the last scene he would have filmed in that jacket was when him and Brody and Carl Gottlieb get on the ferry. That would have been the last time.
okay,
So they would have went to one of the bars on the island that night, and that's when he ran into what he thought was a cat, but it was a skunk, and tried to pet it, and it sprayed him, and he had passed out in the hotel lobby, and they were getting complaints, and a lot of people said that the jacket was burned. I think it says that in Carl's book, or it might not. That might just be the legend and everything. But somebody from the wardrobe department, and I don't remember offhand who was over that. I do remember it was a woman, would have had to have seen the label on the inside where it said Chip and took it back to New York, which is not that far from Martha's Vineyard.
right, right,
So they would have had to have either drove down there or flown down there and had it tailored. But by the time they had got it retailored, because they had stuff ahead of it, Murray had already shot his Fourth of July scene and
right.
scene at that point. So they couldn't. They
Right.
weren't going to
Well,
film
and
that.
you got to figure they did that too because possible reshoots,
Yeah.
or if anything might have else have come up that they might have needed that jacket for a sequence
Right.
itself, and then it just never appeared to be because they got everything they needed then as it is.
Right. And another amazing thing about this jacket is it survived a boiler explosion because the guy that owned it, the English lit teacher, he had all of his model trains and stuff down in his basement where his boiler was at, and his jacket was on a mannequin down there, and the boiler exploded, and it was covered in soot and everything else, and it was black. This is the story that I was told. And he had to go and have that thing professionally dry cleaned several times just to get it back. But you know, the it's in amazing condition.
It is. It's awe inspiring.
And
I swear to God, when I came into that room, it's and also the other one of the fisherman, the Spanish guy,
yeah,
hoodie.
yeah,
And those two pieces just stand out. I mean, but yours is right in the center of. I mean, you must have been as proud as a peacock, man, when you walked in that room and saw it that way.
I was because I got Anna gave Gracie and I, with who you met at the book signing, my girlfriend.
Yeah,
Um, Anna gave us a private tour after closing and everything, and we were standing in there, and you know, it was really a surreal moment for me because if it wasn't for my grandfather,
right.
you and I would not be talking. I'll tell you.
Exactly, exactly.
So I had this like very surreal moment at that point, and I kind of teared up a little bit, like I am now. And Gracie asked me, she said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Yeah, I just wish my grandfather could see this."
Mm,
And it was, of course, Anna had sent me pictures of, like, I knew what the museum looked like before it officially opened because she was FaceTiming me as they were putting everything together, and I saw a lot of stuff in the background plus my stuff, so I knew where everything was at. And but to actually walk in there and see my stuff behind glass,
Yeah,
for
that's an honor. It
yeah,
really is an honor. It's
every
it's a sin that the Academy couldn't get it. Also,
yeah,
I know they have a ton of stuff Jim gave them.
yeah,
You know, but I mean that is such. I'm telling you, man, that is the centerpiece of of the show of the museum. It truly is. It's just, I mean, I walked in with I looked at my wife. I said, holy shit, there's the jacket. It really that is. I mean, I'm telling you, between the shark, the characters, that jacket is one of the main things of the film.
yeah.
It
And I'll
just
tell you something.
stands out so well.
It does, and I'll tell you something else about the jacket. I don't know if you noticed. I'm pretty sure if you on that picture that you have on your phone, if you zoom in enough, you'll
Well, I
see a
videotaped it too. I videotaped the whole room.
good deal.
Yeah.
There's actually a little orange stain on that jacket. Well, there's a local college here. It's Jacksonville State University, and they have a very, very good crime scene investigative program. And one of the
Mm.
things they have, I don't think it's called a spectrometer. Spectrometer. I don't remember what it's called off the top of my head right now, but it's where they can take fibers from something. They can tell you what stained it. So I took it to them because I know somebody that runs the program. And I said, I want you to test this, and I want to know what this is on this jacket. I said, okay. Thought it was a little weird. Okay. It was tomato juice. Now, why is that significant? Is probably what you're thinking. That's significant because Murray Hamilton liked Bloody Marys.
Mm.
And what's in a Bloody Mary? Tomato juice.
There you go. There you go.
So that with everything combined with what the gentleman from Chips told me to having my buddy run that on what stained the jacket, and just lining up every little piece. And this took a year for me to do over the course of a year. It solidified for me that this was the jacket, that this was the jacket.
Right.
And there's been some people on Facebook and things that have been like, "Oh, that's not the jacket because this doesn't line up." And I explained,
Who listen to people on Facebook?
yeah, exactly. I'm like,
All
well,
the know-it-alls.
yeah, exactly. I'm like, well, I know that it is, and I'll explain like how I know. Like, well, that's a bunch of bullshit. Well, it's not
Right.
because I'm not going to drop that kind of cash on something that I don't think isn't something that's real.
How did you display it in your house when you got
I
it?
had it on a mannequin, just like at the vineyard, because the I was able to match the exact shirt that Murray Hamilton wore. It was a Sears wing collar, light blue shirt, and I was able to find a tie that was close enough. I'm still looking for the exact tie that he had,
Hmm.
but I was able to find one that was really close. But I had it on a mannequin in the house
That clearly now, I think if it went to auction, six figures.
easily.
Easily. Easily. I mean, if you got a serious collector, I mean that's one of the main pieces
Well, see, what was
of it.
funny was I was telling Anna when we were taking the tour at the museum, I said, you would not believe all the people that have sent me messages on Facebook. And she go, what do you mean? Because, it says on the plaque, it has my name. And then
Right.
it says technical advisor to the Book of Quint. So you put in my name and you put in Ryan and I's book, I'm going to pop right up. You're going to find, I'm not hard to find. I had people messaging me asking me would I sell that jacket. And the highest offer I had was $80,000.
Sure.
So I told Grace, I said, man, if we ever hit hard times, like you said,
Oh, you got dude, you got that's one of the holy grails.
yeah,
It really is. It really is. I mean that honestly that should be in the Smithsonian.
I agree. And if ever wanted
That's a piece that every like I said, so let me ask you this.
to,
How did you get on your radar to offer your stuff to them as it was? Because same thing with me. I just when the Cabot Theater had do you know the whole thing with Dreyfus at the Cabot Theater?
yeah, I know about
Little
that.
thing. So I was there for that.
Yeah, I remember that.
I
I remember talking about it.
but I also sent stuff because they had nothing. I
Mhm.
said, you can have like a little display, and I talked to their technical guy, that their stylist. He goes, no, and I showed them my stuff, and he's like, oh my God. And I shipped it out, and they had it in a nice display case, and all my stuff was there, and it was really cool. So that's where I got the idea. I said, well, if I can share it with the rest of the world, and it comes back to me, awesome. So
Right.
the same thing when I started hearing the buzz about the museum doing it, I emailed them and started doing that. Was that the same thing with you? Did you go out to make the offer?
Actually, no, they came to me.
Oh, look at you, Mr. Smarty.
I got a random phone call from Anna,
Oh, wow.
and I asked her, I said, how? I said, well, first of all, I'm very grateful and appreciate it. I'm honored that you want to have my stuff in the museum, but how did you know that I have the jacket and the harpoon gun? And she goes, well, we originally reached out to Renee Ben David about using his father's harpoon gun, and he told us that he had sold it to you, and he gave us your number. And
Oh.
then we found you on the Jaws Obsession podcast that you and Ryan Dacco have. And I went, oh. So I was like, so what's this museum deal? I said, like, tell me again where you're from. And she said, well, it's the Martha's Vineyard Museum. And I said, oh, okay, gotcha. And she started telling me what they wanted to do. And I said, okay. I said, well, I've got several things I'd be willing to loan to you. I said, this is loan, right? This isn't a donation. She said, oh no, it's a loan. You'll get it back. I said, okay. She goes, what all do you have? And I said, well, I have the harpoon gun. I have the jacket, obviously. I have two of the barrels that I got from Susan and Lynn Murphy. I painted one of them yellow.
Oh,
I
so you
said,
had the original, the black. You had the black barrels.
yeah. And
Wow.
my barrel in the museum was the one that was sitting next to the shark.
The big head?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's yours?
Yes.
Oh, wow. I'll show that now then. Holy cow. Let's see. I got to darken it now. There we go. All right. Wait. Come on.
That's a different barrel. My barrel's the one that,
That's just the one by the shark head.
yeah.
So
Oh,
that's
that
not
was okay. Yeah, okay, yeah,
your,
that's
yeah.
it. That's it.
Let's see it. Let's
Yeah,
see
it
it.
was kind of hard for me to see. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. And I told her, I said, I have Brody's lamp that was on his roll top desk. And I said, I have a really good replica of Ben Gardner's head that Nick Mara and I worked on for 2 years together and a whole display. And
Now,
she
is that the one that was in the ship or the actually on
in the
its
ship,
own? In the
in the
ship,
ship.
the ship
Yeah.
head.
Yeah. Nick Mara and I worked together for 2 years on that. He did,
Wow.
yeah, he worked on Jurassic Park, Lake Placid, Westworld. He's done stuff for
Yeah,
Universal.
Nick is something else, man.
It's amazing, dude. He's
Amazing.
amazing. That Lon Chaney Wolfman he did. Have you ever seen that?
I want to get him on and talk about that stuff. I definitely do.
I can hook you up with him. He is.
Definitely. Thank you. So here, let me zoom that in. I gotta do it. Come on. I hate this friggin'. There we go.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep. And a buddy of mine that works for Orlando Universal, he had saw where I had done that, and he goes, "Hey, would you be interested in making a whole display for the park?" And I said, "Yeah, I'd love to." And he said, "Well, send me an offer for what you want to do it for." And I said, "Okay." So I got to thinking about my time and material because if you're good at something, you never do it for free. And I got to looking at my time, material cost, and having just to redo the entire thing. I made the one for the park faster than I made my original. And I told him, I said, the only thing I'm not going to be able to supply you with is a life jacket and the additional 6 floater buoys for the net. I told him, I said, I do have an additional net that I will send to you. And I'd sent him a tooth as well because I have a full set of the original teeth that I was able to make a mold of, plus the shot glass tooth. I was able to make a mold of those from one of the original molds
Oh wow.
that was loaned to me by a collector. I don't know if he wants his name out there or not, but he loaned me one of the molds, and he had a pristine shot glass tooth that Hooper pulls out the bottom of Ben Gardner's barrel.
Yeah.
Look up. And he sent that to me and he said, I'm gonna send this to you. Just send it back to me when you get it molded and done. I said, perfect. Had it done in a week, sent it back to him the next week, and I made a casting of those teeth. And when I sent the whole display in my head to the museum, I sent them a tooth as well, but they didn't put the tooth in the hole because they were afraid that somebody might walk off with it.
Right. Right. Yeah. It's very small, very easily to
Yeah, and
disappear.
you could just reach up there and yoink, and they're
Right.
gone.
Right.
And but when I did it for the park, I sent them a tooth as well, and it's still on display up there with one of their Ben Gardner heads that they have.
Yeah.
So
Nicotero gave me a tooth.
I've got one as well.
Yeah, from his cast. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Really nice.
I've got one as well. But yeah, and I told him, I said, I got the harpoon gun, I got the anchor jacket, I got Brody's lamp. I've said I've got the Orca letters, I've got the Ben Gardner head in the whole display. I told her, I said, I have the original blueprints for the Orca itself when they did the conceptual drawings. And I said the only thing about them is they're on thin sheets of paper and they're old, they're starting to
They're
fray.
like
But
trace paper, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
I said, but I did have them scanned, and I sent her the scannings of them. And I thought for sure that they were going to use those. And then she told me, said, with all the stuff we're going to have on the walls and stuff, we're not going to be able to actually display those. I said,
Yeah,
not a big,
because they did a lot, which was good. They did a lot of history
yeah,
on whatever it was. So they had like the pencil sketch,
yeah,
and right there would be everything about that pencil sketch, and that really took up a lot of space
yeah, it did. Plus the
too.
big shark on the wall and everything.
Right. So now, so what did they exactly take from you again?
They took the harpoon gun, they took the anchor jacket, they took Brody's lamp, but didn't display it. They took one of my barrels, and they took the Ben Gardner head and whole display. So they took
And
all of
how did that happen? Did they come to you and grab everything?
They did. They sent a professional shipping company with it was air conditioned in the back. They came and they did everything for me. I didn't have to
You have to
box it.
touch a thing.
Didn't have to. They come in the house that I pointed out to them. I already had everything in my living room, so they could just come and get it. I
Right.
said, "You're gonna take this, this, and this.
And
This
they
is
all itemized everything.
yeah." They had like a sheet of what they were taking, and they checked it off and wrapped it and boxed it up as they went.
And now they have it till September, right?
Correct.
Yeah, yeah. That's amazing. And now let's get to the Book of Quint. How are you associated with the writings of this book with Ryan?
So that's interesting. That's interesting. So in 2020, no, 2021, I had just started my Etsy shop at this point. It's Jaws thing. The name of my Etsy shop is Quint Shark and Shack. And I thought that is the perfect thing I'm gonna call this. And how I originally started that was, and I actually have one of them right here, actually. Um, Nobody was doing the Aqualung decals that was on Hooper's tank.
Right.
And I was able to get a hold of an original set of the chevron and the circle that were unused.
What's the name of your
Quint's Sharking Shack.
okay.
That's, I can send you a link to it.
Gotcha. Got it.
And I had started doing that, or started selling the scuba tank decals in 2020 during COVID. And I sold a lot of them to divers that wanted to use them and things like that. And I sold them to some people on that were interested in Jaws. Renner is one of the people that bought one from me.
No kidding.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And, somebody mentioned to me, you really should start an Etsy account. Because I was just taking payment through PayPal and everything.
Right.
And I was just sending it. And I said, it's not a bad idea. So for a while, for about 6 months, that was the only thing I had in my shop. And then I started doing stickers, and then I started doing the strobe light that Hooper has, the decals and the strap for it. And I started doing the water bottles that I have and a
Now
bunch
let
of
me
other.
ask you this. No, did you have an idea about any problems with copyright?
No, I didn't. Because Aqualung is still around, but they changed their design.
And what
And
about Universal itself?
no, I've never had a problem.
Great, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
You
And
know, listen, there's so much stuff out there now. The Mondo posters, this and that. It's crazy. It's crazy.
and I'm actually gonna send you I'm gonna send you some stuff.
Oh,
So
thank
we
you.
get off some of your address. I've actually got a neat little new sticker that I've done. It says I outswam Alex Kittner 4th of July week.
That's good. That's cool.
Uh, so going back to how I got involved with Ryan in the Book of
Yes.
Quint was he was looking for information on the SDU 5E, and I think I've got yeah, dude. The SDU 5E strobe light that Hooper puts on the barrel that you see him tie up, which is this little device right here. And of course, it flash. The battery in this one is dead because it works on a mercury battery. I have one here somewhere that actually works. But so I was selling the front sticker, and I was able to find an original one. It just didn't have the front one on it, but it had the back sticker.
Oh, wow.
Is how I knew what was on the back. So I was able to replicate that, and I started selling the stickers and the strap. And it took me forever to find the strap, and this is one of them. This is one of the straps. And I was selling those, and he was looking for information on that, more information. And he had found my Etsy shop. He was like, "Hey, my name's Ryan Dacco. I have this podcast called The Jaws Obsession. I'd love to talk to you about the strobe light and your Orca Rebuild project." And I told him, I said, I've never really went on a podcast or anything. And I said, I'm going to tell you flat out, if you want to talk about this business that happened a few years ago that I was involved with another gentleman about using my boat for a documentary he was going to do, I don't want to talk about it. And he goes, okay, well, I don't know what you're talking about. I just want to talk about this. And I said, okay, great. So we had a hour and a half podcast that was episode 2 of the Jaws Obsession. And after we got off the phone, he was like, I'm gonna tell you about something that I'm working on. I'm not told anybody else outside of my wife and Mike Currid with the Martha's Vineyard tour agency, because he has a really good Jaws tour and just tour the island itself, and which is actually where I got my
Yeah, I see it.
yeah. And I said, okay. He said, I want to write a prequel to Jaws, and I said, okay. About what specifically? He goes, I want to write it about Quint, and I was like, man, I gotta tell you, that's gonna be really hard. It's gonna be super hard. And I said, because Jaws fans are really fickle and they have a certain expectation for things. And I said, in my opinion, I don't know if it can be done because of the expectation.
All right.
Because I think it can be done.
Because
And
you have the Indianapolis
yep,
story, and
yep,
then you meet him with the chalkboard.
yep,
So to get that middle,
yep.
to create that universe or his
That's the
history
thing.
is, yeah, you got to really, it's walking on eggshells that way.
Yeah. And so 4.5 hours later, so this is a total of a 5 hour conversation that we end up having. He tells me his whole outline of how he wants to do this, his whole game plan in all of this. And I told him, I said, I've never met somebody that had a book that planned out in my life.
Mm.
And he asked me, he said, do you want to be a part of this? And again, this is one of them times where either you don't do something or you don't. And I went, yeah, I do want to be a part of this. So we started working on the book. He had already started writing the Indianapolis sequence, the first part of the book. And then it just took off from there. And of course, you have to get permission from the Benchleys and all this. And Ryan was halfway through the book, and we approached the Benchleys about it, didn't hear nothing. And then finally, they responded, their lawyer did. They was like, well, send us what you have now. And we did. And then they said, well, we're interested. Keep writing the rest of it. So we finished it, sent it to them, didn't hear anything from us. And finally, they gave us permission to publish the book. Finally. And this was in 2022. So in October 2022, before that, we had started an Indiegogo page just to gauge the interest. And there was a lot of interest at this point. And of course, we already had the podcast, so we knew there was interest on that side, but not everybody listened to the podcast. So we were pushing it out on Facebook and Instagram and all these other websites and stuff. And through Indiegogo, we found out that there was a really big interest in this. So in October of 2022, we published a limited supply of, I want to say it was 400 books. It might have been 300 books, but I want to say it was 400 books.
Self-published,
Yeah, at that point, yeah.
hardcover, paperback.
Hardcover,
Oh wow.
hardcover.
Yeah, that's a
And
big commitment too.
yeah,
That could be just a storage room for a long time collecting dust.
yeah, it can be. And that was a risk that we took.
Right.
And from there, we went, okay, we got to find a publisher. Didn't know how we was going to do it. Had no clue. And Ryan had sent me a bunch of books. So I just started sending them out to people that I knew that were associated with people that, were in the publishing world, that were in the movie world. And I just sent them books because you never know. You might land somebody that knows a publishing house that might be interested in it. I sent one to Sean O'Rourke, sent one to him. I was like, hey, there's this book. I know you're a really big Jaws fan. I think you might want to read it. And he goes, all right, send it to me. Here's my mailing address. Send it to him. He read through that thing, I think, in a week. And he goes, this is the greatest thing I've ever read. It's one of the greatest things I've ever read. Come to find out, he is associated with Bill Pettit of the William Pettit Agency, and he's the one that got Stranger Things off the ground.
Oh wow. That's big.
And through Bill, who is our agent for the book, he was able to get us a publishing house in England. And so that's how we got the book published. And then since then, we've created our own publishing house, which is Amity Point Publishing.
Oh, that's sweet. How many copies did the old 400 go, the original run?
All 400 went, yeah.
So, when Brian had the book signing, so you were kind of in the back. So, are you? I didn't get to read the book yet.
Okay.
I'm going off to Europe next week,
Okay.
and that's coming with me. So
All
I'm going on a cruise. So I'll be lounging by the pool, and I'm gonna be reading this book.
nice. Nice.
And then I want to get Ryan on after I read the book too, so I'll be fresh in my head to talk about it.
Okay.
But what was the now I lost my train of thought.
I do that myself.
What was the after you sold them? You republished it itself. Did you add new pages or is it still the original
It's
text?
it's still the original text.
Okay,
Everything's original to it. The only thing that's not original is the new, as you saw at the book signing, is the new hardback with the dust jacket and everything. And
gotcha.
hard book in the hardback itself, instead of being, which our original was black with inlaid with silver, it's white inlaid with copper.
And again, that's where I want to get to. Where are you credited? Because I
Yes, I'm
didn't see
credited
this.
in the back of the book. I am Ryan's
Okay.
technical advisor for the podcast
Oh,
and
okay. Okay. But did you help on the book or did Ryan write the whole book himself?
Ryan wrote the book, and he and I every night, I'm not shitting you, every night from 2021 until he was done in 2022, we were on the phone every night discussing chapters and everything that happens. Literally every night and we'd be on the phone sometimes 6 or 7 hours a night.
Wow.
And then I got to go to work the next day.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But you're
And
doing like a fine tooth comb of laying it out and making sure everything's perfect.
exactly. And while that was going on, I was drawing the maps in the back of the book, and I was drawing the orca in there as well because I drew those. And I did the orca font for the book and for the inside of the chapter pages, and also did the Quint font that you see on the side of his truck and the
Hmm.
publicity stills. I did that as well. I actually sell those fonts on my page as well, along with the billboard font. and because I created those myself, going in by hand and doing it. And so that was my contribution with the maps, the Orca drawings, the fonts, and being Ryan's technical advisor to the what we call the world of Quint, to the Jaws
Gotcha.
expanded universe and the Jaws itself. That was my contribution to the book.
Any any bringing it to Hollywood? Anything about screenplays or anything like that right now?
Yeah, so there's a screenplay written. There is a screenplay written, and it is. I can't say too much about any of this.
Well, is it positive?
It's positive,
Okay,
yes.
that we'll go that far. It's positive.
It's
Good,
positive. It's
good,
been
good,
received
good.
very well.
Very good, very good. Okay, now let's get to you. What are you doing now? What's your newest adventure?
Aside from rebuilding the Orca itself, which I've been doing since 2020, she's actually getting moved to Florida in a few weeks. I bought a piece of property outside of Destin
So
with a.
you're building an orca.
I've been doing it for 5 years.
Oh my
Yes,
God,
and
amazing.
which in that, as you know, I'm also writing a book about all this because I have 12 notebooks filled with just Orca related stuff, and then I've kept a journal over several composition books of everything that I've done, put down notes and things like that that I've been turning into a book, which I sent to you.
Yes.
So that would be my newest venture in that.
Did you
Uh,
pitch it yet?
the book,
Yes.
not yet,
Okay.
not yet.
So you got to complete it first.
I'm gonna complete it first, and then I'm gonna pitch it. And outside of that, I've been rebuilding Quint's truck as well.
So what do you do for a living now itself?
I work for UPS is what I do.
Wow. Wow. So
Yep,
all your spare time, you're doing all this other stuff going on.
correct.
Holy. And are you married now?
No, not yet, not yet.
Okay. All right. So
Soon,
well,
but
so I'm saying you have the time in
yes,
that sense.
yes,
You know, like when I went to Court's building of the cabin,
yeah,
and the same thing. He woke up one day and he felt like making it down in his basement, and he's
yeah.
doing this and he's doing that. As he's talking, I open up my mouth. I go, "Oh, my wife would have divorced me about 6 months into it."
It's the obsessions that we have and the
And
women that
it's the
understand.
detail.
Yeah,
It's not it's the fucking detail. It's
yeah,
amazing how it was a half a quarter here on the wood and this and that and the slats were like this and this. I'm like,
yep,
I was like so. And then when you see it,
yeah,
I mean, and then to take it apart
yeah,
and bring it, I'm like, dude, I say, God bless you. That is dedication beyond dedication, especially now what you're doing now too. It's amazing. It's amazing
yeah.
because honestly, and you're leaving a legacy. Because I'm telling you, this is something like it's. I feel like The Godfather, Jaws, The Exorcist, Saturday Night Fever, everything from the '70s. I think is going to live on.
Yeah.
You'll have your Rockies and your Alien and your Ghostbusters, stuff like that. But that stuff is like standard, and only us can show the youth of how
Yep.
amazing it was. I showed my 2-year-old grandson Jaws,
Really
and he knows Bruce.
nice,
He knows him as Bruce.
nice.
Yeah. So it's great. It's great. I love it. Like when you come down to my man cave, as soon as you come down, I have all the posters on the wall. Up to Jaws too. I have memorabilia. Oh, it's ridiculous. Me too. I'm a huge Kiss fan. I have all Kiss crap. King Kong, the '78 version. I have the poster of that. It's nuts. I have my own obsession of all that stuff too. But the new stuff keeps coming out, and I'm buying it. And like, did you see the Coda Arts new posters that they came out with?
I believe so.
I put them on the Shark is Broken fan page,
I believe I did see it. I
and they
believe
sold out like immediately.
I
It's
yes,
crazy. It's crazy.
it
You
is.
know,
Jaws is one of those movies that is going to be around. It's the original summer blockbuster.
right?
It's going to be around for another 50, 100 years and beyond that. And when I talk to people about Jaws, I always say that they captured lightning in a bottle, and it's never going to be replicated.
Yeah. I
Like,
say it's the most perfect imperfect movie.
exactly.
There's so many flaws within it,
Mhm.
and if you really analyze certain things, you're like, come on, come on, and but yeah, it doesn't matter because you get sucked right in,
Yep.
no matter. Now let me ask you this because I have the page. Did you see the Broadway show?
I did see the Broadway show. I
You
saw
came
it.
into New York?
I went to New
Oh,
York in
great.
2023. I saw it twice.
Oh, great.
And I got Ian Shaw to sign my copy of the Book of Quint, my hardback.
Oh, awesome. Did you give him a copy?
Ryan gave him a copy.
Oh, awesome. Good, good, good. And how did he take to that?
So I asked him about it when, because Ryan had went before I did by, I think, a month is how long it had been. I think it was a month, might have been 2 months. And Ryan had given him a copy of the book, and he stood there and talked to Ryan for several minutes about the book out back behind the building.
Yes.
And when I brought it up to him, apparently a lot of people had been bringing him our book for him to sign.
Oh, that's great.
And he goes, "Oh, another one of these." And he was quite cheerful about it. And I said, "Yes, sir." I said, I helped write this. And he goes, "Oh, really?" And I said, "I did." I said, "My name's in the back of the book." And I showed him. And I asked him, I said, "Have you read it?" He said, "I've read part of it." And I said, "Well, my big question to you is because we dedicated the book to Robert Shaw and your mother." I said, "How do you feel about the book?" And he said, "I think it's good from what I've read." Now, whether he's finished the book or not, I don't know. That was just what I know from when I talked to him in New York.
Right.
And he remembered me when I come back the next day and saw the play again. And he goes, "You're back." And I said, "I am back." I said, "I had to see it again before I leave. I had to see it again."
The first time I saw it, my brain was going, holy shit, holy shit, holy shit, because I couldn't believe it. That there
He
was
looks just
actually a
like his
play,
father.
just when you walk in and see the Orca,
Yeah.
yeah, everything was just like, wow, wow, wow. And then him on the stage. And I saw it 10 times.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice.
I was there for the opening when they released the tickets.
Yeah.
I was like the seventh person online. I saw the premiere. I saw opening night. I went to closing night, and I went like to a ton of matinees in between, and it was great. And it wasn't bad because the ticket that I got was only $40.
Okay.
So, and it was in the orchestra too.
Nice.
So it was great. By the time, like by the sixth time, the ushers are like, "Oh, here's your seat." It's like, "Here you go." And I got more of an enjoyment of seeing other people reacting after
Exactly.
after the like I said, the first time I was so blown away by it that I really didn't remember it. I was so enthralled by it. And then after that, I started, really digging it. And my wife was like, "You're going again?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm going again."
Well,
I love
that's like
it. It was a great play. It was just a great play.
when Gracie and I were on the Vineyard for the 50th. We went and saw a screening of Jaws at the theater there, and there were people in there that had never seen Jaws before because
Oh wow.
you could hear them talking about it. And I told Gracie we were sitting in our seats, and I said, "This is gonna be good." She goes, "Well, yeah, Jaws is good." And I was like, "Honey, you don't understand. There's people." I said, "Listen, there's people that's never seen this movie in this theater
They're
right
gonna
now."
get the reaction.
And when Chrissy first gets killed, screaming. And then when Alex Kenner gets killed, screaming. When Hooper goes under the boat, Ben Gardner's boat, the flick of the check it out, and the head pops down, people were jumping out of their seats. And the one,
Wow. Like
one
70, like it was 75.
yeah, and then the two things that really stuck out to me aside from that, the number one thing was when Quint gives the Indianapolis monologue speech
From the play, or you mean the movie?
in the movie.
Yes.
And we're sitting in that theater and watching the film, and you could hear a pin drop while he was telling that. And then after he finishes it, it was quiet. It was nothing but quiet. And then at the end, when Quint gets eaten, you had people yelling, that obviously never seen the film. like get away, like yelling no and then screaming when he gets bit. And there was people in there crying when Quint
Hmm.
died. And we walked out of the theater, and I told Gracie, I said, the shark is still working. Shark is
There,
still working.
there was two showings. Were you there when the cast went to that one?
No, I was
Okay,
not
so you went to like the first or second. I guess the second one might have been
to the
it
second.
was a 4 o'clock one that they did it at.
Yes, I went to the 7 o'clock show.
Okay, okay, yeah. I had the privilege because of starting the Facebook page, and I wasn't stupid, but around September into November, I'm like, I can't believe there's a fan page for everything.
But
I said, what the hell? I said, like, I got time, and I created the fan page, and it was towards the end, and I had maybe like 500 people, and then it wasn't until the UK run started that I'm up to almost 2,500 followers on the page,
uh,
which I think is a really amazing compared to, it was stagnant for so long,
yeah,
and it was so great because now I wanted to get the programs from there because it was almost like a rock band
yeah,
traveling, and
yeah,
I had a lot of really nice people that sent me the programs from
mhm.
all the different theaters, and
I've
there was different merch too that they did out there, you
I've
know,
got one of the I've got one of those signed by the cast, and I've also got a poster as well.
from the Broadway show.
Yes.
Yeah, they did a Broadway Cares thing that the whole cast signed it
Yeah.
because Alex Brightman never came out.
Right.
He only came out to get his Grubhub food
Yeah. I
and
was
thank
disappointed by
everybody.
that.
So he was very weird that way, which was kind of like, come on now, But Colin and Ian, no matter what, always had time.
Yep.
Always had
He
time.
made time.
Yeah, and Ian was amazing. Like by like the seventh time, we're buddies, and
Right.
I even just went out to say hello and thank you, and I even went to a Broadway show one time, and I'm going down the block, and they were doing stuff, they did came out, and I had my window down, and we made eye contact. It was like, hey, well, it was really cool. There was the people were so nice. The show I said is so great, and I got privileged because Guy Masterson, I became friends with Guy. He allowed me and my wife to see the run through of the new cast doing it at Martha's Vineyard,
Okay.
and that was a trip, man. Because it was only 5 people. It was me, my wife, Guy, and two of the production people and the cast in a room, and they did it just for like regular chairs and tables. It was all taped off. It was such an amazing, different way of seeing it.
Right.
It was really, really cool. All right, we almost talked 2 hours.
Oh God, it has been almost 2 hours.
So but hey, it was great. It was not. And when you get done with the Orca rebuild, come back
Oh, I definitely will.
and we'll talk about that. And hopefully we'll get to meet each other. I said by the 75th, it'll be just us, and
Yeah.
I'll be on the panel
Yeah.
reminiscing. And God willing, we'll be around. Well, you'll be around. I don't
Yeah.
know if I'll be around. You're young enough to
He'll
be
be
around.
around. Jaws fans, they're hard to kill, man.
I said the only thing we'll have holograms of the cast by then.
Yeah.
So Gage, man, thank you so much for being on. And again, give your Etsy site.
My Etsy is Quint Shark and Shack, and my website for my Orca Rebuild is orcarebuild.com. And you can go to the link on my website and find my YouTube channel, or you can just type in Orca Rebuild on YouTube and it'll pop right up.
And that's your YouTube channel itself.
Correct. And
Great, great.
want to listen to Ryan and I's podcast? It's on every major podcast that there is. It's called The Jaws Obsession by Ryan Dacco, and the book is the Book of Quint by Ryan Dacco.
And that you can get on Amazon probably, right?
Well, we actually just sold out for the third time.
Oh, fantastic.
We do have a phenomenal audiobook that was narrated by John Waters, and he does over 20 different voices in the book.
Not the director.
Do what?
Not the director, John Waters.
No, not the director.
Okay. I was gonna say that would be an interesting tone.
Uh, but he does over 20 different voices. And there are still copies of the book at the Edgartown bookstore on Martha's Vineyard. You can give them a call and they'll take your order over the phone and they'll ship it out to you.
Great, great. Are those signed? Did Ryan sign those?
Yes, every single one of them are signed.
Excellent, excellent. All right, folks. So thank you so much for being here. Remember the Shark is Broken fan page and my Paulie Flicks channel that you'll be able to watch this in a little while, and we'll see you soon. So as we say to everyone, farewell and adieu.